You guys ready? Good evening. We will go ahead and continue on with our agenda. Let's go ahead and do the Pledge of Allegiance. And Dr. Kelly, will you lead us in that pledge?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, board, we're going to go straight into our superintendent's update with enrollment report. Dr. Loden.
Okay, we're ending the year strong. For the month of April, we were at 6,655 enrollment, which is 211 students above the prior year. And then for the superintendent's report this month, we have Dr. Kelly is going to start off. Can you hear me now? Okay, Dave, it's got to be the microphone then. Dr. Kelly, you ready?
Yes. Is that one all there? There he is. This is Dallin Atwell, and Dallin was recently named a Missouri Scholars 100. We had 2 students that were named to the Missouri Scholars 100 program. That program is a program put on by the Missouri Association of Secondary School Principals. And the goal of that program is to identify the top 100 seniors in the state of Missouri. And so there are over 60,000 seniors in the state of Missouri this year. Dallin is one of 100. And Nixa High School this year. So we had the opportunity to go to Columbia the day after prom, actually. So that was fun. To travel to Columbia and have a banquet to recognize Dallin. We also had another student who could not be here tonight, Eshawn Jane, also was a Missouri Scholars 100. So out of over 500 districts in the state of Missouri, out of over 900 high schools in the state of Missouri, we have 2 of the top 100 students in the entire state. So big congratulations to him. I'm going to let him also share where he is going to college because he made that decision that weekend. That's pretty exciting.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. This summer, after working and saving up money, I'll be attending Columbia University, New York City. So it's a big change from Nixa. And I credit a lot of that to, first of all, my family and all the teachers, many of whom are here, the administrators, and I actually have a letter for the school board because I've been in Nixa since kindergarten. So growing up in this community and going through the whole Nixa Public Schools program, kindergarten through 12th grade, I've been so blessed with all the amazing teachers and faculty and administrators that have supported me every step of the way. And it's always such a nice feeling anywhere I go, seeing these people that I recognize, knowing that they care for me as a student, but also just as who I am and who I'm proud to be today. So I have this for you, but thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. When we're done, you'd be happy to take a picture? Yeah. Absolutely. This is awesome.
Okay. Dr. Kopp, special recognition.
Well, 25 years is a very long time. And it's hard to do something 100% for 25 years in a row. However, our wonderful Donna and Lloyd have accomplished that goal. They, for 25 years, have provided 100% on our state bus inspections, and we want to celebrate them tonight. It is quite an accomplishment. So I just ask that Donna and Lloyd come on up, and we'd like to just show them our appreciation. They will say that this is a team effort. It's not just the two of them. Our bus drivers do an awesome job of helping keeping our buses well maintained. But I do want to give Lloyd so much credit. In fact, the state inspectors that come in actually are trying to pull them to start working for him because he does such an amazing job. And so I know that Donna's going to hold on to him, but I mean, he kind of has to. But Lloyd does just a tremendous job keeping our buses in shape and in order. So a lot of credit goes to him as well. And 25 years is an amazing thing. So great job.
Can we get a picture? We so appreciate you keeping our students safe. Thank you for what you've done. That is a very excellent what you've done for the last 25 years. I'm trying to find the word. Excellent operations.
Yeah.
There you go. Very good.
How many
So,
buses? How many buses?
Jason, would you get a picture with them? Mr. Massengale? Donna, the board would like to know, how many buses do you have? She's not. How many? 47 buses.
And that's 100% on 47
7 buses.
First time through.
for 25 years.
You get 2 scores. You get a first time through, and if there's a defect, they let you fix it before the inspectors leave, and then you get a second score. So we had 25 years in a row, first time through with no defects.
Amazing.
Yeah. So we broke the record. The only school district that has that. Yay.
Wow.
Very good.
Congratulations. So good. So good. Okay, moving on in our board meeting correspondence. Mr. Copeland, do we have any correspondence? Have none. In your consent agenda, board, would you like anything pulled from the consent agenda for further discussion? No? Okay, we're going to take 2 different votes because we do have some. Correct. We're going to take 3 different votes because we pulled out 2. So we're going to vote board from 6.01 to 6.13.
Motion. Second.
We have a first by Mr. Dunn and a second by Mr. Roberts. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, consent agenda approved. Now we're going to vote for 6.14 for the reemployment of Rachel Pendergrass, and Mr. Copeland will not be voting in this particular vote.
Motion.
Second. We have a first by Mr. Roberts, a second by Mr. Omsky. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now we're going to vote for the reemployment of Jessica Sterling, and Linda Darty will not vote.
Motion.
First by Mr. Dunn, second by Mr. Massengale. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Oh, opposed. Nobody. Motion passes. Okay. We're going to move into our regular agenda time, and we all know that tonight we're discussing a very important topic to all of us. And so in this time, this is actually where public comments will be taken. As we start to move through that, I just want to let you know that each person has 3 minutes. You've already turned in your forms. If you have not turned in your form, you cannot speak going forward. And we allow that to happen through 6:30. So each person will be able to come up. You have 3 minutes. Please watch the time. You will hear a little bell that will go off, or a beep. Can you practice that for us? Can you tell, what does that sound like, Mr. List?
Let me fast forward.
Okay, as he's fast forwarding that, I'll continue. But we want to hear from everybody, and so we want to make sure that we are very conscientious of time. It's almost there. 4. So when you hear, you'll hear it. When you hear it, finish that sentence, and then we'll ask you to step back from the mic so we can give other people time. I also want to say that the board has spent a lot of time reviewing all of the material so that you know that from upfront. We also reviewed the committee's recommendations on that as well. So, board, any questions? We're ready to roll? Okay. So I'll call the person up to speak, and then I'll tell who's on deck that will speak next, since we have a big house tonight. That way you can come on up here to the side. So the first person, and please, if I pronounce your name incorrectly, I'm trying my very best, okay? So this is Megan Nikanti. Did I say that right, Megan?
Pretty close.
Okay. Say that again. Megana. Very pretty. Okay. Let me say this. Justin, is that Jones? Oh, excuse me, Justice. You're on deck. Okay. All right. Megana.
My name is Meghna Nikanti, and I'm a junior at Nixa High School. And before I begin, I would like to thank the school board for providing us with a platform to have our opinions heard. I'm speaking today because I'm concerned about the situation regarding the removal of books from the school library. The students here today represent only a few out of the countless students who oppose these restrictions. The books being challenged are not required readings, so it's a student's personal choice to engage with them. If they feel uncomfortable, they can stop reading or skip pages. However, all students lose access to diverse ideas when books are restricted or removed. One example of this is Homegoing by Ya Chasi, which is currently in the process of being appealed. This novel conveys powerful themes of racism, colonialism, slavery, and heritage. Throughout its 320 pages, less than 13 mention questionable content that parents are concerned about. Homegoing does not only have sexual content, it is simply a small piece of a story which has valuable messages about inequality and discrimination. The content of this book and others have led to parental concern about the mental health or the influence of the content on students. However, according to the Department of Health and Human Services, behaviors such as sexual activity are influenced by digital media, parental behavior, and the environment at home. Books are not on the list of influences. Removing and restricting books is not popular among students either. 316 students that we talked to signed a petition saying that they were opposed to restrictions. Instead, other solutions should be considered. If a parent is concerned about the material in a book, they can request that the librarians withhold certain books from their student. Another possibility is the addition of special tags or content warnings to help students determine if a book is appropriate for them. These designations can ensure transparency while still providing students access. Critics of these books have cited Statute 573 when considering the removal of these books. Per this statute, a piece of media would only be considered obscene if it provoked an unhealthy interest in sex, offensively portrayed those acts, and had no literary, scientific, or artistic value. And this is upheld by the precedent of Miller versus California. The intention of these books is not to spread offensive or inappropriate content. Instead, these books present these topics in nuanced ways. Books in schools play a vital role in supporting students as they continue to grow. As Megan Palmer, a master's student at the University of New Haven, remarked, by recognizing students as capable and integral, schools can use literature to instill a foundation of acceptance and understanding. Thank you for your time.
Okay, we'll have Justice. And before you start her time, there is a petition with students' names. I'll pass that for everybody to see. Justice, how do you pronounce your last name?
Jones.
Okay, I couldn't read the last letter, so I'm so sorry. All right, thank you. Go ahead.
I am Justice Jones, a junior at Nixa High School. My family and I have lived in Nixa for over 10 years, and I have undergone my entire education in Nixa Public Schools. Thank you for allowing me and my peers the opportunity to speak today. I would like to start by saying that I wrote an article about this subject for the most recent issue of our school's magazine, The Wingspan. When working on this assignment, I remained objective to give readers an unbiased look at the issue. The knowledge I gained helped me develop my own opinion about the removal of these books. I, along with many of my peers, believe that these materials should remain in our library without restriction. Two of the most common reasons parents seek the removal of books are to protect their kids from inappropriate content and to increase parental involvement in their child's learning process. While both of these points are important consideration, there needs to be balance between independence and parental involvement. Students are more mature than many think, and most have the ability to handle complex themes or topics presented in these books. Slavery, racism, the Holocaust, and other issues are examples of mature topics that students learn in elementary and middle school. By the time students reach high school, they can navigate these topics on their own without the guidance of a teacher or parent. Having a choice on what to consume allows students to better form understandings of the world around them. Although these books may not be appropriate for all students, it is unfair to limit the choice for every student. Whether or not a student should read a particular book is solely between them and their parents. Parents do play a critical role in their child's education. I do not know where I would be without the guidance of my mother. But as a child gets older and closer to adulthood, the role of a parent should move from direction to guidance. High school students are at an age where they can choose what media they consume. This allows them to form their own beliefs and ideas about the world around them in conjunction with the beliefs and values nurtured by their family. High school is meant to prepare students to go into the workforce or move on to higher education. Limiting a student on the perspectives they can read is not preparing them for the types of people they would encounter outside of school. Students at this level need to branch out and learn more about the world outside of their immediate circle. We organized a petition for students to express their disapproval of the current requests for books to be removed from the library, as you all can see. In 1 week, our group collected 316 signatures. These signatures represent students from all grades, genders, ethnicities, who believe they would benefit from access to these books in the library without restriction. Stephen Chbosky, the author of The Perks of Being a Wallflower, once remarked, "Banning books gives us silence when we need speech. It closes our ears when we need to listen, and it makes us blind when we need sight." Thank you for listening.
Dave, I think it's this mic that keeps singing. Can you turn, is there a way to turn it off? Or maybe I could turn it a different way. I think it's interfering. Okay.
Do you mind speaking to it?
Hello?
One more
1,
time.
2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Thank you. Okay. Lindsay Ruiz and Elizabeth Bushker is on deck.
Oh, do I just start speaking? Oh, sorry. Hi, my name is Lindsay Ruiz, and I'm a sophomore at Nixa High School. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My family and I have lived in Nixa for 5 years. But more importantly than that, I am pansexual and I have Latin heritage. These two aspects of my personality have shaped my identity, and students like me are exactly the kind of students that need the books that are facing criticism. By restricting or banning these books, students lose diverse literature. Minority voices are especially at risk. Many of these books were written by or contain viewpoints of a person of color or LGBTQ characters. Restricting books with these characters would have detrimental effects on students. Literature with diverse representation can help us find not only ourselves, but understand the perspectives and ideas of others around us. These books contain themes outside of the supposed inappropriate content. In Fun Home by Alison Bechtel, only 4 out of 240 pages have content that can be considered inappropriate. The book showcases Bechtel's life primarily through illustration, focusing on her experiences as a lesbian and dealing with the suicide of her closeted gay father. These 4 pages serve larger purpose, such as self-discovery and insecurities about someone's sexuality. This book helps students who have recently lost a loved one or are grappling with their own identities. When asked about the controversy surrounding her book, Bechtel stated, "I think banning books is the wrong approach. If you don't want your child to have access to these books, don't let them get a hold of it. This is a decision that a parent can make only for their individual students, and they cannot dictate the choices of everyone." All Boys Aren't Blue by George M. Johnson is a memoir about Johnson's experiences as as a Black non-binary person. It contains less than 8 pages of sexual content out of 320. By removing this book from the library, students will lose the opportunity to learn about life through Johnson's perspective. While some of the material may be for older students, restricting or removing the book prevents everyone from learning about the complex parts of life. In an interview with Time magazine, Johnson said that children still have to exist in a world with these heavy topics, and they are not going to be affected by whether they read this book or not. But having this book will give them the tools, the language, the resources, and the education so that they have a roadmap for how to handle it in their adult life. Despite mentions of inappropriate content, this book helps students navigate complicated issues. Books that contain minority viewpoints are vital to students our age. If we go out to the world without having the ability to empathize and respect those different from us, then we are being set up for failure. As former President Lyndon B. Johnson once said, books and ideas are the most effective weapons against ignorance and intolerance. Thank you.
Elizabeth?
Yes.
Okay. How do
How do I pronounce it?
you pronounce your last name?
Judash Buskirk.
Okay, thank
You're
you.
welcome. Mhm. You came close.
I tried. I tried.
I get Dudash Buskirk a lot, trust me.
Okay.
We can have fun with that. I am here tonight as a couple of things. I'm a citizen of Nixa. I'm a taxpayer. My kids went through this school, and my grandchildren may go through this school someday. And in addition to that, I teach at Missouri State University. One of the things I encounter on a regular basis are students who say that they were not exposed to certain ideas and that college was going to turn them into liberal leftists. And I tell them that is not the case, that instead, what we are going to do is hopefully help you think critically. When we ban books or restrict books, the one thing we take away is, as these students have so very well said, you should come take 115 with me, by the way, guys, public speaking, is that when you take that away from them, you take away the option for them to think critically. You take away the option for them to decide what things they want to believe in or not. Or as a Jesuit brother said to me when I was in college, faith untested isn't faith. Well, knowledge untested isn't knowledge either. It is, in fact, indoctrination. So what we need to do is give our students the opportunity to learn. Before I go on, I just want to read some passages of books that currently exist in the library. Is that okay? First, my beloved thrust his hand through the latch opening and my heart began to pound for him. That comes from the Song of Solomon in the Bible. That night, they got their father to drink wine, and the older daughter went in and slept with him. He was not aware of when she lay down or when she got up. The next day, the older daughter said to the younger, "Last night I slept with my father. Let's get him to drink wine again tonight, and you go in and sleep with him so we can preserve our family line for our father." Again, Song of Solomon. Another wonderful text that we have in the library goes like this. She felt the blood beating in her throat, in her eyes, the hatred, the helpless terror in her blood. She felt the hatred. She fought the last convulsion. Then the sudden pain shot up and she screamed. Then she lay still. Ayn Rand, The Fountainhead. These are the things that your children, our children, are exposed to, and the things that they may choose to read. Some of this was required reading when I was in school. Maybe that's because I went to a Catholic school. I was required to read the Bible. Maybe it's because I had a lot of Ayn Rand fans around me. I'm not really sure. But if I were to stand here and tell you that there are more books in this library that are far, far less quality than the ones that we're considering banning and restricting, I would be lying. Don't restrict their education. Thank you.
Coburn, and then Rebecca Kaufman is on deck.
My name is Jeannie Coburn and I live in Nixa. I've lived here for 6 years. I have a child in the district.
Speak up, Jeannie.
I'm Jeannie Coburn and I live in the district and I have a daughter who's in the high school here. I've lived here for 6 years. I've been an educator. I'm also a mental health professional. And I can tell you that I encounter children who have endured things worse than you can even imagine. And they come to me and tell me that they never had support for that at home. They never knew that there was anything wrong with what was happening to them. I encounter adults, a lot of adults, who, when they were children, were abused or neglected or hurt or harmed in some way. And they are still struggling to this day. And they talk about how they were warned not to tell anyone. And they grew up thinking that there was nothing wrong with what happened to them because no one affirmed them. Books, freedom of the freedoms that we have in the Constitution and Bill of Rights affirm that we have the ability to read what we want to read and know what we want to know. This is what makes America great. This is what makes this community great, is because we are able to think critically and analyze facts. And we are able to ask questions and see what's going on in the world. I encourage you, please do not be swayed by the loud and the angry. That is not the majority of this community by far. Most of this people in this community want people to have access to books, if they want access to books. And if someone doesn't want their child having access to a book, they can say so. It's very simple. But if someone else limits what my child can read, then they're inserting themselves into my freedoms. And I don't like that. And I'd like to ask, how many of you are for the Constitution and the Bill of Rights? Okay. I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, Rebecca Kaufman and then Cindy Dickens.
My name is Rebecca Kaufman. I'm the mom to 3 students currently in Nixa schools. I fully support the removal of the challenged books that this board has been reviewing. The fact that parents are having to speak up and ask that school buildings not provide porn in the library is outrageous and it's embarrassing. The 3 books being appealed are obscene. They have no place in any school building. Detailing graphic sexual deviancy, such as pedophilia, incestuous sex, and rape is too heavy for our kids to carry. It's also illegal to distribute to minors. In Nixa's Library Media Policy Manual, Section 3, the Statement of Professional Ethics, it clearly states that librarians must place reason above personal opinion. What reasonable person finds this material suitable for kids? The same code of ethics provided to me by Nixa High School librarians Sheila Michaels and Julie Stotts also states in point number 9 that they affirm the inherent dignity and rights of every person. What about the rights of our kids to not bear the burden of graphic sexual acts detailed in these books while they're too young to fully understand or consent? What about the rights of parents to voice their concerns and protect their kids' mental well-being? What about our rights to express our concerns without our personal information being shared with local news media? Who, by the way, cut my statement short to exclude the fact that the book I challenged details a 6-year-old child performing oral sex and molesting another young child. That's dishonest reporting. On February 20th, 2020, this board recognized that parents and guardians are the primary source of sexuality education for their kids. The board also recognized parents' ability to opt in or out of sex ed material. Furthermore, Communicating with students about sexual topics in written or pictorial form like these books is a violation of policy GBH, staff and student relations, as a failure to maintain boundaries. Staff members who violate this policy are supposed to be disciplined. Arguing for this pornographic material to be accessible to minors in a school building is failing to maintain boundaries with our kids. Any Nixa school staff member who has reviewed these books and the sexual content and found it to be appropriate for kids needs to resign immediately. There have already been multiple less explicit books deemed too inappropriate to loan without parental permission. Where are we setting our standards? Because right now it's very inconsistent. Do the right thing, remove this material, and make a plan to prevent it from happening again.
Cindy Dickens and Jeremy Hayes is on deck.
Good evening. Many of us have been called racist and homophobic. These are baseless accusations and dangerous rhetoric. So the first thing I would like to address is the lie that we are targeting minorities in the books that we are challenging. Here are the pesky facts about the original list of 50 authors. 32 are white, 16 are Black, 2 are Hispanic. 35 are straight, 8 are gay, 7 unknown, 27 are female, and 23 are males. The next lie I would like to address is the crap going around that by removing or restricting access to certain books, that somehow we are taking away a student's ability to access information. Let me ask a simple question. How many parents, high school students, junior high students in this room have a cell phone with internet access? As well, all junior high and high school students have a Chromebook provided by the district. I think it is safe to say that most, if not all of you, have a cell phone with internet access. Your kid can sit at school or in their bedroom and access Pornhub if they so desire. On your dime, not my taxpayer dime. We know that the district does indeed try to restrict and filter what is accessed on these Chromebooks, but these kids are often smarter than your filters. If you have an issue with the books being removed or restricted, but you don't have an issue with restrictions or filters on Chromebooks, well, quite frankly, that makes no sense. We live in a world where anything and everything can be found with a few clicks of a button. So for parents to say that removal or restriction of books censors information or a kid's ability to get it is lost on logical thinking people. One question I would have for the board is this: if a student were to draw for art class or write a paper for English, the filth that is found in these books, would you expect a discipline to be handed down? Would you expect parents to be contacted? If so, then why is it okay for the libraries to provide this same material? I believe the board got it right when they left masks up to parents, and I see this as no different. I'm asking you, the school board, do the right thing and let us parents parent our children. I believe that the board would continue to build a strong trust among parents by voting to remove or restrict these books. I also believe that by voting not to remove or restrict these books, you will have a negative impact on the relationship with the community and specifically the parents who want the power left in their hands. Lastly, I, like others, am calling for the resignation of the high school librarians, Sheila Michaels and Julie Stotts, for knowingly and willingly making pornography as defined by the Missouri law available to students. If you're not sure what that law is, I've got copies. If you're willing to come get them. I doubt you will.
Jeremy Hayes and Tamara Yancey, you're on deck.
Thank you all for having us here. I came here to support actually mostly the students here. It's really powerful to see them to speak up. It's exactly what we've asked our students to become, right? Someone that
is learn, has an opinion, can speak for it, right? We have a ton of students here that are going to speak, hopefully. And we've seen that. So I want to echo some of that, but I can't let some of this go either. For the other side to attack, not only you, but other administrators and people that work for this school, is unacceptable. They don't read the law correctly, and I'm sure your legal has informed you quite well what the law is here. There are multiple cases to the Supreme Court that you can use for guidance, especially Miller versus California, and this is not pornographic material. It does not meet the 3 standards, and I'm sure you guys have that information and you've already researched this. But I want to speak to the parental rights piece. She spoke about that they want parental rights. They want to say what their kids can read. That is available today. Any parent can restrict any piece of material in the library today. They can call them up, they can email them. They have multiple options to do that. When they come and restrict it for everyone, I lose my rights as a parent. They have the avenues to restrict it for them. They have parental rights. When you restrict books and you ban books, we lose parental rights. We don't gain any. The other piece I wanted to speak to is they speak about these 2 or 3 pages, these 4 pages, these 6 pages. In fact, 2 of the ones being challenged tonight, the person challenging it didn't read more than 6 pages of the book. Context is everything. We as human beings have complex lives, some good, some bad. And when I'm telling my story, I include both. Context is everything. We need to understand that. These books are award-winning books. They meet your policy. They are brought in because they're good books. They've won awards. They've won awards for young literature. In that age level, we should not be banning or restricting books. Thank you.
Tammy Nancy and Kyle Yulzabus. Hopefully I said that correctly.
Hi. Incredibly nervous and I hate public speaking and I avoid it at all costs, but this I felt was super important for me to come out and speak about. And I really don't really have much to say because I think that you guys, and I think you probably will, listen to the students. Their voice should be the loudest. That should be the one you should consider. This is their library. And really they've said it all. You guys have heard that these books have already been through policy. They meet policy. You've heard about case law. You've heard about Missouri statutes. You guys already know all this. So I'm just asking that you guys do the right thing and keep the books in the library.
Kyle Yulzabus and then Dr. John Vaughn.
All right. Hi, my name is Kyle Holstabus. We're hearing a lot of people asking for a word from students. I'm a recent student of Nixa. I now go to Missouri State University. I'm a future educator. And I don't have any kids yet, but I think that this issue affects everyone in our community equally, as you can see. I truly believe that children have a right to innocence, and their parents have a right to protect that innocence until they see fit. As a future teacher, I know the boundaries of my job. Schools are not tasked with raising or parenting their students, simply educating them. I think we've forgotten that. We have no right to overstep parents and introduce their children to inappropriate material without their permission. With the influx of teachers peddling radical gender theory and critical race theory into our schools, as you can tell, it's no wonder that the trust between parents and teachers is pretty much gone at this point. How many students need to be pulled out of our district until we open our eyes and reconcile our misbehavior? I love to read. The library was one of my favorite places when I was in school. I believe books have a power to open doors for people and truly transform lives. So here is a quote from a rather important book. It's a story about a Holocaust survivor, The Hiding Place, the triumphant true story of Corrie ten Boom. Around the age of 12, Corrie asked her father a very basic question. And so, seated next to my father in the train compartment, I suddenly asked, "Father, what is sex?" He turned to look at me, as he always did when answering a question. But to my surprise, he said nothing. As he stood up, lifting his traveling case off the bench, he set it on the floor. "Will you carry it off the train for me?" he asked. I stood up and tugged at it. It was crammed with the watches and spare parts he had purchased earlier that day. "It's too heavy," I said. "Yes," he replied. And it would be a pretty poor father who would ask his little girl to carry such a load. It's the same way, Corrie, with knowledge. Some knowledge is too heavy for children. When you're older and stronger, you can bear it. For now, you must trust me to carry it for you. Innocence is a priceless commodity. Be careful how you treat it. Thank you, guys.
Dr. John Vaughn, did I
Yes,
say
I'm-
that correctly?
Thank you.
Okay, and who's on deck is Carissa Corson.
Let me say on the front end that most of the issues that we're dealing with here are bigger than Nixa, and it's even bigger than our country. This is a national issue, international issue. My research has been quoted by almost all major media in the US, some major media across the world, major Harvard, Princeton, University of California, all have quoted my research. But I'm here today because I have 4 grandkids that are in the school system, in both the junior high and at the high school. And I have one of my family there that's graduated this school is a recent student body president of the high school. We're dealing with issues of sex, and race, gender, and what is happening is if I were to, and I've read, by the way, more than 20 of the different books that we're dealing with here, some that are even not in your school library or in the classroom, but they could be coming to a neighborhood near you pretty soon, especially if the publisher decides to go ahead and give it as a complimentary copy to your library. But if I were to have some of the material that even has been discussed in this room here tonight on my computer, these men outside that wall right there would have a right to come to me and arrest me for having child porn on my computer. And it's a very serious thing. It can't be taken lightly. We've been led to believe that this transgender issue is really a small issue. It's like LGBTQ plus, okay? Depends on who you're talking to. It's really more like an octopus when you look at the long game. Dr. Alfred Kinsey, University of Indiana, father of the sexual revolution in the US, said it's unlimited. The diversity is unlimited. No bones hard. No bones are so held. ABC News in 2014 said there were 58 genders. Same year, Open Ed said there were 76 genders. Tumblr in 2019 said there are 112 genders. So the question is, how far do we want to go in this issue if we're going to bring it into the school system and make it an issue we want to deal with? It is bigger than you, and you might want to ask yourself, do we really, really want to go there? This is a TikTok generation, and China plans to be the world dominant person and country in about 2049. TikTok, they own, and they are re-educating our culture, and they're in competition with our classrooms. And the question is, do we want to be a TikTok school district, or do we want to be a school district that is actually built on the basics to compete with these people who plan to dominate the world in 2 class cycles as a school district?
Lisa Corson, and then we have Dana Crowder on deck.
Hi, I'm Carissa Corson, and I have 3 young kids in Nixa School System. How did we get to a point of discussing pornography in books? I'll tell you how. Complacency mixed with pride and the lack of wisdom. To be clear, I include myself in that we, because I always thought Nixa Schools had my children's best interest at heart, but I've learned differently. And so I started using wisdom on this journey when we approached the administration in October with our concerns about questionable books in our libraries. My team and I have been patient, following policies and recommendations by the administration. It would be an understatement to say that I was disappointed to receive the results of my challenged books, Fun Home and All Boys Aren't Blue. To give the audience here context, I will only give descriptions of the contents in these books because the excerpts of these books are so egregious and explicit, it would defeat the purpose of our mission to read these out loud with young minor ears present, stealing their innocence. Fun Home pictorially contains full frontal male genitalia, oral sex scenes, masturbation, grooming, pedophilia, and topless women. All Boys Aren't Blue contains play-by-play oral and anal sex, detailed descriptions of aroused genitalia, and incest. It also has critical race theory sprinkled throughout it. If the 4 Nixa employees of this if the 4 Nixa employees on this committee voted to keep this book on the shelves, you belong on a national registry, and I call for your resignation. Specifically, I'd like to call for the resignation of Nixa High School librarians, Sheila Michaels and Julie Scott. They used their power and authority to expose our youth to pornographic books, and instead of apologizing and in removing the books, they doubled down and put their stamp of approval on them. They too belong on a national registry. Nixa School's mission statement talks about the dedication to legacy, or the legacy of excellence. Does excellence coincide with offering pornography? How do you reconcile the parameters of sex education, the student handbook, or mental health with books normalizing grooming, oral sex, anal sex, masturbation, incest, or pedophilia? Is the library considered to be outside of these policies? Is it untouchable and above reproach? What will be accepted next? Bestiality, necrophilia? You may scoff at the notion of that, but can you imagine having this conversation 20 or even 10 years ago? People back then would have scoffed at this. Here we are. The line must be drawn and not crossed. Lastly, I've met people through this process, and in this town, people talk. You hear about Nixa employees' reputations and what they're like on a personal basis. I have been disheartened to learn that many times who they say they are personally is not who they are professionally. They're 2 different things. Specifically, those that have had a direct part in this process, you will not stand up for your beliefs and values. You sit. Don't disappoint us.
My name is Dana Crowder, and I recently, my husband and I have been citizens of Nixa for 20 years and more, and I recently challenged the fictional book Homegoing. Amazon describes this book as addressing 2 half-sisters' experience with slavery. This book made national news when a mom from Cherokee County, Georgia, read an excerpt from this book and was stopped by a board member because children were listening. I would like to know what objective guidelines were used by the review committee in determining that this book was appropriate for students at the age of 14. I am in favor of our high school students having access to literature that is diverse, that exposes them to different viewpoints and life perspectives, societal issues such as racism, poverty, and abuse. These are real concerns in our world, and students need to be discussing them. However, there are books that cross the line between addressing these issues respectfully without using sexually explicit language or pornography as defined in the Missouri Statute 573040. The book Homegoing crosses this line. I would like to read an excerpt from this book, and I will warn you, it is very graphic. He put her on a folded tarp, spread her legs, and entered her. She screamed, but he placed his hand over her lips, then put his fingers in her mouth. Biting them only seemed to please him, so she stopped. This is but one excerpt from my challenge, of which I included 3 additional pages of similar excerpts, and there were numerous more of which I did not submit. Excerpts of rape, murder, child abuse, and suicide, and more. Again, I believe most parents would agree that this is inappropriate for most 14-year-olds and should not be provided in the school library. I would like to know the guidelines the committee used to determine that this was appropriate. Surely, of the thousands of books published annually dealing with societal and cultural issues, better choices can be made rather than the sexually explicit books of the type I just reviewed. Thank you.
Jensen Courts, and then Jennifer Rosebrock.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I am a parent of a recent graduate of Nixa. I have one in the high school and one in the junior high right now. And I'm very grateful to live in a place where we can share 2 opposing views before you, and for me to just be able to speak and share mine. And I have one thing I want to ask of the school board and the school leadership and of everyone in this room in our community to make this a better place, and it's just integrity. I ask of you integrity. I'm concerned about the graphic nature of the books that are in our library. And what I mean by integrity is if we had teachers read in class some of the material that are in these books, they would be suspended or fired, but yet we just freely allow this to our students. And I'm concerned about that. One of my books that I got to see that my daughter just picked up and read because she likes dystopian books, called The Wind-Up Girl. It just has 2 pages of a graphic scene of gang rape. And if a teacher would read that, they would be reported by the kids, but yet we can just, that's just freely available. And I want to speak on another topic too, because my wife can't be here. She's out of the country. She's a mental health professional. She works for another school district than this one. And she deals with kids that have had pretty broken home, sexual abuse, different thing issues. And I want us to consider this because I know, like I read the Springfield News Leader article yesterday, and one of the high schoolers, I think was probably in the room, mentioned that one book was helpful, just dealing with, some mental health struggles of depression and suicide. And I totally relate to that. I've had 2 relatives take their lives. I get it. But at the same time, just speaking for my wife is like, these books with graphic sexual nature can put a kid in a very dark place that's dealing with these things. And I want us to think, because we talk about this a lot, we want safety for our kids. And I think we have to consider that. And so to finish, as I talk about integrity, it's like, for the people that oppose my view, and I know there's plenty here, it's like, be just as passionate with integrity for the movie rating system. Like, try to remove that, because it's the same sort of thing. Try to get rid of filters of our Chromebooks. Please fight for that, because that's integrity. And I really appreciate your time. I know this is a very emotionally charged room, and I'm grateful we can share both sides. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Jennifer Rosebrock, and then Janica Volz is on deck.
When Michelle Obama started her health initiative, first thing she did in the schools was take out the vending machines.
She took out the junk food because, in her words, children will choose a Snickers bar every time over broccoli. And I will tell you, I have read Homegoing in its entirety. It's disgusting. All right, so it's a story of the generational impacts of slavery, but the historical value is diminished by at least 10 different graphic depictions of sexual intercourse to include 2 rapes, sex between children, the dreamlike state of a mother who calmly watches her children burn after setting their hut on fire. Also, child abuse, more murders, and the suicide of a pregnant mother. There's also elements of critical race theory included, contradicting the district statement that CRT was not in our schools. This book also violates policies on sex ed, student conduct, and boundaries between faculty and students. Undoubtedly, there's a trust that has been broken here. One where parents believe that schools have the best interest of their children at heart rather than political agendas. While you can't isolate young minds from all the dark elements of the world, we expect you not to invite them in. Yes. To repair this broken trust, here's a few suggestions. Remove this book from the library as it simply doesn't adhere to Nixa's standards of excellence. Ask for the resignations of the high school librarians, Sheila Michaels and Julia. For that same reason, they have shown their incompetence in vetting the books and negated their role as educators to be political activists instead. Apply meaningful standards that will actually vet library materials in the future so we don't have to hear texts such as this, and I apologize for the graphic nature. With his right hand, he stroked his penis. Don't worry, I won't touch her. Robert did all the work that night while the blue suit guarded the door. It wasn't more than a few tear-stained kisses and carefully placed hands. Before the gray suit could ask Robert to enter her, he came, a shuddering, breathy thing. We're at a pivotal point, ladies and gentlemen. If this is the kind of material that becomes standard reading material, I can't even imagine what could possibly be next. Let's be the exception by raising the bar, not lowering it. Yeah. There's a great country song that says, you've got to stand for something or you'll fall for anything. This is your opportunity to restore faith in the system by standing up for what's right.
Janica,
They're interrupting at times. Tell them to stop that. Point of order, please.
Janica Vollis and Terry Myers, you're on deck. We're running it the best we can. We thank you for your comments. Janica?
My name is Janisha Volz.
Oh, I'm
That's
so
okay.
sorry.
I'm so used to that. That's okay.
Janisa, okay.
And I have lived and worked here in Nixa for the last 11 years. I am the mother, bio, foster, adoptive guardian of 6 Nixa graduates. And my husband and I currently have 6 children attending Nixa schools, Inman Intermediate, the junior high, the high school, and SCORE. My family has been very involved in this community since we relocated here. As a parent, teacher, and community member, I want to say loud and clear that none of these books should be banned. And guess what? I've actually read at least 5 of the books that are on the group's list of books they want removed from the public high school library shelves. Wait, the true story of the 3 little pigs is on the junior high list. And then I've read Crank, Looking for Alaska, All Boys Aren't Blue, and The Bluest Eye. From cover to cover, not just the excerpts that are being shared by the group who wants to ban books in public schools. Not every book will appeal to every reader, but that doesn't mean that those stories shouldn't exist or shouldn't be made accessible. Our district already has a system in place so that when a parent does not want their child to have access to a particular book, they can let the librarians know, and that book will be red flagged and not be checked out to that child. This protects everyone's rights rather than just those who want to ban books. We would all love to live, I know, in a society where traumatic issues don't exist, but ignoring the stories does not make the issues go away. It just makes people feel more isolated. Should we not also be asking the question, how does book banning affect young adult readers? For those who see themselves reflected in these books, censoring or banning these books negates their existence, and even sometimes they feel like it's their humanity. It's saying to them that if you're experiencing these types of issues, then there's something wrong with you and it mustn't be discussed. In those cases, it sends the message that there is no place for those children or teens in our communities. It creates shame. This is unacceptable. It also belittles young people in general by telling them that they are not capable of handling difficult topics, even though they are exposed to these issues everywhere: the news, social media, friends, family. I understand that we want to protect the children and teens in our communities from the world's ugliness, but removing a book does not remove the issue in our communities. It just removes a resource that can help our young people better comprehend it. Reading is a safe place to experience things and may even make teens feel better equipped to handle something if and when something does happen. And a bonus, kids may develop empathy by reading something that a parent might feel is too dark or advanced. For some kids, that's their daily reality, and it can give other kids a window into the lives of their friends. It's called critical thinking, and this is something we should encourage rather than fear. Thank you.
Gary Myers, and then Ron Sanders, you're on deck.
I do want to thank you for listening to us. I think that's a very valuable thing for our community, something very healthy.
But I also want to thank that young man right there.
I was very surprised to hear that of all the books challenged, that not one of them was taken off of the shelf. The books that have been challenged seem to be going way beyond the healthy sex education policy of Nixa Public Schools. The ones that are being challenged seem to border or include pornography. I've been married 43 and a half years and couldn't even finish a sentence. I am here as a voice for my grandchildren. I'm not here to ask for censorship or banning books. I just don't think they belong in the libraries of Nixa Public Schools.
Ron Sanders, and then Karen Perry.
There are a lot of very good points being made tonight, and I really like the fact that we have both sides represented. I can agree a lot on both sides. I can agree that freedom of speech and having the books available is important to the community, okay? But this is not the only place where these books are available. If parents want their kids to have these books, they can spend their money and they can read them to them on their own time, in their own home. I would like you all to think about who y'all represent and where this whole school comes from. Because y'all are sitting there because you were elected by all of the taxpayers, all of the people who vote here in this school district. We're the ones that pay the bills here. We're the ones that pay the taxes here. And y'all are the stewards for all of that. So y'all aren't here to give everything to everybody. Y'all are not here to give what some people could consider pornographic books because they don't want to spend their money somewhere else, or they want to make a point that it's available to the schools. You also have to respect the boundaries that that young man mentioned, because you have to respect the boundaries of the parents. Now, I have family. Everybody has family. Everybody has cousins. Everybody has uncles and aunts. How many of y'all would let your uncles and aunts or cousins talk about these subjects with your kids? How many people in this room would do that? Would you just freely allow relatives and descendants, let alone people in the school that we don't even know, talk about subjects like this? Talk about that heavy suitcase, right? Now balance that on the taxes that the taxpayers pay you and your fiscal responsibilities with buying these books, and then the impact it has on these young minds who may or may not be fragile because they've had stuff happen to them before or they haven't. And then the young kids and what they do, because I can guarantee you some of the ideas that are getting into kids' heads about performing oral sex in the lunchroom, trying to either intimidate a girl or impress a girl, or somebody opening up a conversation with an adult, and then it ended up 10 years later where you have to fire the guy and send him to prison because he was not respecting his boundaries. All of that ties into everything that we're talking about tonight. And it's on your head. It's your responsibility to balance all of that. Thank you.
Perry and Scott Morgan is on deck.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. My name's Karen Perry. I actually have 3 kids I have 2 in the Nixa School District, and I homeschool my youngest. I've been in Nixa for about 16 years now, and my kids have been in Nixa schools since they were in pre-K. When I was growing up, I didn't grow up with a happy home. My sister and I kind of clung together, and reading was how we kind of got through things. When I heard the theme of some of the books, I could really relate to that. Fortunately, one of the things that my dad did was supported me by taking me to the library every Friday. And I would walk out with a stack of books taller than my head. One of my favorite books of all time is A Wrinkle in Time. And it's been on the banned book list since 1962. I've read that book over 100 times and I've worn out multiple copies. I never thought I would grow up to see a time in my life where removing books would be a possibility. I thought this was something I would only read about from the past. Now I'm a mom and I have a child going into high school. I have an 11-year-old sitting in the audience who is an avid reader, reads at a 12th grade level. My 2 sons are neurodivergent, one with ADHD and one with hearing impairments. I have another son that is just very much his own person. If you have not met Maddox, you know what I'm talking about. All of my children, to my knowledge, are straight white males. They do not get bullied for being straight white males. They get bullied for looking gay. They get bullied for having ADHD behavior. They get bullied for being deaf. My son's biracial friends do not get bullied by their Black peers for having white parents. They are bullied by their white peers for being Black. The theme of these books, while they maybe have some sexual connotation to them, there's a lot of books on this list that are pro-LGBTQ, pro-Black, pro-Asian, pro-Jewish. Kind of lost my spot here. What do you think you're sending? What kind of message do you think you're sending to those LGBTQ kids, to the Black kids, to the Jewish kids, to the kids that are neurodivergent? When you're taking out books that represent them, you're telling them that they are not accepted in their own school district. I hope you guys do the right thing today. I hope you keep the books in. Doing the right thing is never, ever wrong. Thank you.
Scott Morgan and then Andrea Rowley is on deck.
Good evening. Thank you for the forum. I'm a 10-year Nixa resident. I got 2 kids go to school here, not in high school yet, but that's the hope. And man, I thought we were done with this protect the kids, put our hair on fire and blame something thing. I thought we were done with this. I remember when it was Elvis Presley. I remember hearing about how Halloween, we need to ban that to protect kids. I mean, certain songs, certain movies, call this what it is. It has nothing to do with protecting kids. It is control. It is controlling. Some folks, hey, you want to raise your kid a certain way? Great. If you are informed by your faith, terrific. But keep it to yourself on that. It's a public school. We don't ban books in America. And today they will find something to call pornography. Over and over, they're calling something pornography. Those books have stories in them about things that minority people go through, minorities in this country. And they talk, and I've heard it in the back of the audience, the Snickers and all these different things. Oh, it's not about LGBTQ people. Oh, it's not about critical race theory. Well, you just happen, the three books that are banned, one's by a Black woman, one's by a lesbian, and one is by a Black man who is gay. Now, I think coincidences take a lot of planning. I really do. Where does it stop? Because you let them in the door. You let them in the door and you let them start deciding, well, this is what everybody's kids should learn. No one is forcing kids to read these books. No one has been tackled. None of these kids here have been tackled in the hallway by a book and forced to read it. None. This is a slippery slope. And you all, believe it or not, now this is not when you ran for school board, I am sure you weren't thinking about, well, great, now I got to figure out what book I'm going to ban. I trust you all. The voters trusted you. You put librarians and professionals all through this school district. I've seen it. My kids have benefited so much from this school. They're making good choices. You have the policies in place. If these people don't want their kids to read a book, fine. No one is forcing them to do it. I don't want to have to explain to my kid why they live in a neighborhood that doesn't value the voices of Black people or gays or lesbians. I don't want to explain to my kid why my grandfather fought fascists in World War II who were burning books and banning stuff because they wanted control over thought. I'm not going to have to explain that to her because I have faith in you all to make the right choice. This is America. We have rights and we have freedom of choice. Do not let them take that away. Thank you.
And then Laura Freeman.
Hello, as a mental health professional who works with individuals primarily who struggles with pornography addiction, male and female, I would just like to provide some education on this subject because I think it's really important to understand the why. When talking about these issues, we often kind of think of it as a moral or right versus wrong, and I just want to provide it as it's a not healthy thing to have pornographic books in our schools. In countless studies and brain scans, it has been proven that cravings experienced by some hooked on porn can be like the craving of a drug addict experiences. Specifically, cocaine addiction is very similar. With repeated exposure to porn, the portion of the brain responsible for decision-making and willpower, the prefrontal cortex, begins to shrink. The chemical pathways of the brain designed for sexual pleasure are rewired to seek out porn instead of connection to a real person. This is a crisis of connection. When an individual first sees porn, the brain sends a flood of dopamine into the body. Dopamine is the "I've got to have this" response. It's a drug. This is what causes the user to go back for more. It is highly addictive. So it's not something people can control. It's like when I see a bear, adrenaline and cortisol are flowing through my body. When they see these type of images, this is a natural response that they have no control over. Scientists are now starting to see that continued exposure to porn gives the brain an unnatural high beyond what is wired to handle. And the brain eventually fatigues. This is the same phenomenon that drug users cause in the body. The brain becomes desensitized to more of the drug, or harder drugs are needed to get the same high. This is what we are dealing with. It's progressive, it keeps going. I talk to men who started when they were young. They were exposed to pornography when they were young, and it progressed to really devastating consequences. The thing that we want to understand here is because it is highly addictive, we have restrictions on gambling, which is also highly addictive. We have restrictions on alcohol. We have restrictions on smoking. but we do not have these restrictions in our school system on pornography. And we need to protect our children because their minds are not fully developed until they're 26 years old. They need our help in making these decisions until their brain is fully developed to make those decisions for themselves. So it is our responsibility to do that and help them navigate that space. This is a school library. Minors are here. We need to keep it to a minor level. The public library in our city has anybody can go to that. But if we have a primary individual, like a group of people that are minors, we have to make it safe for minors. Thank you.
Laura Freeman, and then Michael Long.
Hello, thank you for your commitment of time to this position. I know it's a sacrifice and that you guys are serving. That's great. I'm a former graduate of Nixa High School. When I was here, the main goal was to do well in sports and get a good score on your ACT. It's sad that this is where we are. I would voice that an anything goes idea is also a very slippery slope, in contradiction to what the gentleman said. I'm a mom, I'm a grandma, and I believe in the right to innocence. I had exposures in book form at home when I was younger, and it was not good. It doesn't leave you very well, like the lady right before me expressed. So those exposures to this age group is very concerning. I'm an advocate. I mean, yes, these have been banned in other school districts throughout the country and in Missouri. So it's not that it can't be done and that it isn't maybe the right thing to do for our community. I think we have to evaluate that. You guys are in a position where you have to consider that. The other gentleman spoke about movies. And in the classification and rating rules from the Motion Picture Association, the CARA, they call it, as they established a board by the Motion Picture Association and the National Association of Theater Owners as part of a voluntary system to provide information to parents to aid them in determining the suitability of individual motion pictures for viewing by their children. As outlined in these rules, motion pictures intended to be exhibited and distributed commercially to the public, note the word public, this is a public school, in the United States, to provide parents information concerning the content of those motion pictures to help them determine each motion picture's suitability for viewing by their children. And I'm just grabbing excerpts out of this, I'm sorry, we don't have time. Each member of the rating board must be a parent and may not have any other affiliation with the entertainment industry. Okay, just keep that part out of it. The chairperson and senior raters may have children of any age. Raters must have children between the ages of 5 and 15 when they join and must leave the rating board when all their children have reached the age of 21. I did some research. I believe the age of majority in Missouri is still 18. The ratings obviously will go into that in just a moment. All motion pictures intended for exhibition in the United States produced or theatrically distributed by a member of the Motion Picture Association must be submitted to CARA for rating. The rating classifications, and I know I'm running out of time. For PG-13, more than brief nudity will require at least a PG-13 rating, but such nudity in a PG-13 rated motion picture generally not be sexually oriented. R is for children under 17, requiring an accompanying parent or adult guardian. Thank you for your time.
Michael Long and Amara Fusco.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Michael Long. I'm a junior at Nixa High, and I think it's very arbitrary that we are trying to ban books because when I remember when I was in 5th grade, these same pornographic themes, I guess you could say, were introduced to me and read to me in class. I remember vividly that the book A Dog's Life included the scene of 2 teens wrestling on a couch perceived by the dog protagonist. If that is already read to us in schools, then why should we ban other things that aren't as nearly as potent? Excuse me, thank you.
Nara Fusco and then Corin Harsky.
Hi, my name is Amara Fusco. I'm a senior at Nixa High School.
Okay, everybody's okay? Very good. Amara. There you go.
Hello, my name is Amara Fusco. I'm a senior at Nixa High School. I've been going to Nixa all 17 years of my life. I love books. I love books because they expose me to things I never could have been exposed to before. It transports me to different times, to different places, through different people's eyes. And I think that experience is invaluable. We as students need to be learning these tough topics at high school, because if not high school, where? Many of our students aren't going on to further education, which is great. And so we should be providing our students with thorough education in high school. Many people have ascertained that these books are impeding upon their freedom to educate their children. I'd like to point out that parents still have these boundaries to set with the school. They are able to flag books with the librarians and not allow their children to read it. Furthermore, none of these books are in the curriculum, so they are not taught to our children. And I think we also need to look at the importance of context. Most of the excerpts being read are one paragraph that does have graphic depictions. However, these depictions aren't anything that we haven't heard before, and it adds to the overarching themes in the book that are more important and contribute to the education. I believe that every student has the right to have their perspectives and identities represented in books and literature. Seeing that your unique experience in life isn't alienated is incredibly valuable and allows you to put that into context. Thank you for your time. I hope that you recognize the importance of books when making this important decision.
Corin Harsky and then Jack Carnes.
Initially, I was hesitant to participate in advocating for the removal of books from the library, as I'm a fervent supporter of free speech and I'm very much against censorship, especially given the cancel culture epidemic we're currently facing in the public sphere. However, after reading excerpts from some of the books in question, I was surprised they had even made their way onto library shelves in the first place. When it comes to kids and the content they have access to in school, it just makes sense that there would be some sort of standard. I had assumed the district would agree with this stance given the strict regulations it imposes with regard to the content students are allowed to access on their Chromebooks, even down to the search engine, that's one engine, Google, that they're allowed to use. I was surprised to find this is not the case. On the topic of standards, where is the line? If 50 Shades of Grey had somehow made its way into the library, I would hope there would be no debate as to whether it belongs there or not. But it seems that some are so married to the idea that no book should be removed under any circumstance, whether it belonged there in the first place or not, that they're unwilling to concede any exceptions. I've never read 50 Shades of Grey, but I get the gist, and I would imagine the content in some of the books being challenged is equally explicit. That said, I understand the district's desire to approach the situation cautiously, as it can be a slippery slope. I also get that some of the best books throughout history have contained controversial subject matter, and I don't think a heavy-handed approach should be taken. At the same time, I've read 2 of the books in question, and I have to say, it's not like we're discussing the likes of Ernest Hemingway, Maya Angelou, George Orwell, or Harper Lee. One of the books I read and challenged, called Crank, contains some of the least impressive writing I've read. Honestly, with so many excellent books to choose from, I'm disappointed that tax dollars, have been spent on procuring such lackluster material. The argument has been made that the traumatic content in some of the books can help children who have experienced similar trauma. I fail to see the logic in this. How does exposing kids and adolescents to further trauma help them cope with what they've already experienced without some sort of guidance? I do think reading such content can help adults better understand the mindset of someone who has had these experiences and can potentially better equip them to identify and help students who have had similar trauma. We also have to consider the effects on the kids who have not had such experiences in real life. To reiterate, I vehemently defend free speech. I'm anti-censorship, but it's our job as parents and the duty of the district to protect children and make sure they're have access only to content that they're ready for. To quote Jiddu Krishnamurti, it is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. A society that seeks to sexualize children is profoundly sick. So I ask of the board, what type of society do you wish to cultivate?
Jack Carnes and Alex Rapp.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, school board. My name is Jack Carnes. I'm not here to talk about the books, but all I can say is if the librarians had been doing their job, we wouldn't be here. That's the bottom line. So I think there's I want to talk about a policy change that's being proposed to the student handbook. And it reads, there are many situations where school employees will meet with individual students. School counselors will meet with the students to discuss academics and personal issues. Teachers often discuss academic performance with students, and school officials meet with students when there are disciplinary violations. These conversations are an essential part of this educational process, but the district will not honor requests by parents and guardians to be informed prior to these discussions, be present during the discussions, or prohibit conversations between a student and a staff member. This is in accordance with board policy. Is that right? Is that what's going to be happening? Is that what we're going to do? Speak up, ask a question, answer. If I wanted a village to raise my kids, I'd ask for your help, but I'm not asking you for your help. You're going to have a conversation with my kids without my knowledge and without me being informed or discussed, and I'm prohibited from the conversations. I'm not so sure that's what I want for my children. That's all I can say. So I asked a question. Nobody wants to answer it? Nobody wants to answer it? Or mom?
Actually, this is our first read of the policy.
Oh, really?
So we'll be discussing it.
Okay. All right. Well, if I needed a village to raise my child, I'd ask you. I don't need your help or assistance. If I did, then I would ask. You know, then I'd ask you to step up. But I think further discussion, further information, all that needs to be done, research, what have you. But it was posted. That's all I can tell you. So I'm concerned. Thanks.
Alex Rapp, and you are our final speaker.
Hi, my name is Alex Rapp, and I'm a junior at Nixa High School, and I don't think there should be any bans on books or restrictions of knowledge, period. As the saying goes, knowledge is power, and when someone wants to take away that knowledge, you should probably ask why. There may be different opinions in the school, and that's okay, but what we must steer away from is the silencing of voices that may not be the same as the majority or that look like the majority. There is room for everyone here at Nixa, as long as we treat each other with respect. And one last thing, I cannot think of one student at the high school that would be content with Miss Michaels or Mrs. Stott's leaving. And I would like to take a moment to tell Mrs. Stott's and Miss Michaels that we as the student body are behind you and we will support you.
Okay, that was our last speaker, and I know I can speak for the whole board. We really appreciate hearing from all of you, our students, our parents. And you are right, we've spent a lot of time on this personally. And we'll skip previous business because we have none. We'll go into new businesses, which is where we're going to cast the vote. But before that, I'd like Mr. David List to come up. He has been spearheading this from the school district side, and I'd like for him to share with us where we are right now.
Thank you, board. Good evening. As the district liaison for Nixa School Libraries, I come to you tonight simply to present a chronology of the reconsideration of material appeals, which you will decide on now in the agenda. Between February 14 and April 18, 2022, the district has received 17 consideration of material submissions on 16 unique titles. Pursuant to board policy KLB AP1, 5 review committees were formed using the board policy outline. The 5 committees kicked off on March 1st, 2022, each being assigned 2 of the first 10 titles. As committee recommendations became available, beginning April 12th, 2022, high school principal Dr. David Kelly began notifying complainants of the outcomes. As each of these committees finalized their recommendations for the 2 titles originally assigned, each of them were assigned 1 more title for a total of 15 of the 16 currently challenged titles. Also in the February timeline, the district suspended all library book purchasing while acquisition procedures were evaluated. Changes were made in an attempt to give a wider breadth of evaluation on district library book acquisition and to assure concentration of acquisition being in compliance with board policy IIAC R1. Book purchasing was reinstated later in March. As of tonight, 11 of the 16 titles have committee recommendations. Per board policy KLB AP1, after the complainant has had the committee's recommendation shared with them, if not satisfied, they have the ability to appeal in writing to the superintendent, and the superintendent or designee will forward that appeal on to the Nixa School Board for their decision. Again, as a reminder, per board policy, the board's decision is final. As of tonight, the Nixa School Board of Education has 3 titles which have been officially appealed for a decision. The first is Fun Home, a family tragic comic. The committee recommendation was retained without restriction. The complainant's request is removal. Number of checkouts in the past 3 years up to December is 12. All Boys Aren't Blue, a memoir manifesto. The committee's recommendation is retained without restriction. Complainant's request is removal. Number of checkouts in the past 3 years through December was 2. The third is Homegoing. Committee recommendation, retained without restriction. Complainant's request is removal. Number of checkouts in the past 3 years through December is 2. Finally, as the Nixa School Board of Education makes decisions regarding these titles this evening, Nixa Public Schools libraries, librarians, and administrators will ensure future book acquisitions will align with the board's demonstrated standard. Do you have any questions for me?
Board? Thank you. Thank you for your work on this.
Well, we certainly appreciate everybody's comments. We know this is a national trend at school boards all across the country. We did this with masks. That was fun. We're CRT, and then obviously this, and there'll be more. But civility is important. I think that is crucial, whatever the debate is, because for me, we've heard, and we've all heard that. Besides this, we've had calls, visits. We've heard from the group this side extreme. We've heard the group this side extreme. I wish there was common ground. That would make sense. But everybody made good points, and I think we all take that into consideration. It is interesting, though. I was curious on the number. So is that 2 years or 3 years?
3 years, 3%.
So all boys aren't blue was checked out twice. Fun home 12 times, and homegoing twice. So we also know, I think, in fact, someone made the statement, you can get these outside of Nixa. You can get them on the phone, you can get them on the internet. So we can't legislate that. We're making sure, or coming up with a decision on these 3. But I think that's a consideration. But good points on both sides.
Absolutely. Any other comments, board?
I think what I got from this evening is that everybody in this room, everybody wants what's best for kids, right? For our students. That is the common ground. Now, we obviously draw the line in different places of what that is, but that's different. Human beings are different. And so I think that we need to remember that we're here for the kids and we do have that commonality. And even though we may have a different definition of what's best for those kids, we are united in that goal. Shall we vote?
Any others? Jason, you want to
I
say
just
something?
say I do appreciate everybody's taking time in the comments, appreciate students coming and voicing their opinion. Even though this is an uncomfortable conversation, I still appreciate the conversation.
Absolutely.
I just want to say, don't take lightly that we have put in our time reviewing the books and the excerpts from the books and everything, and the comments from emails, the comments from you tonight. And I was keeping track of the numbers that are for removal and the ones that are for keeping, and they were even. So it is. I understand everybody in this room is passionate about it. We're, as Josh said, we're passionate about doing what's right for kids, and it's not easy. But, we're going to do the best that we see fit. And we appreciate the civility of this evening.
Absolutely. It's totally up to you. I just want to give you opportunity if you want to speak.
I mean, I don't have much to add. I would agree with that. And oftentimes in my day job and in my board work, I really look to build consensus and find common ground. And this was a really hard work. This was a hard situation. As Mike said, we did put in our time. We looked at so much information, from reading the books to the committee reports to reading every email that came. Looked at online reviews, looked at so many different sources of these books, and it wasn't easy. And it is about what we, in the end, what we feel like is best for the kiddos. Gosh, so many things taken into consideration. I called Josh and Linda 12,000 times, I think. So it just wasn't easy, and we do appreciate you all being here. I think this kind of public comment and feedback and just input is critical, and I would love to be able to do that more often, even on various subjects. So we do appreciate you coming out today, and we do hear you. I mean, we hear each and every one of you, even if however this goes down, we hear you. We hear you. We hear you.
Yeah, and I would just reiterate that much of what the board said tonight, and I think that we all want to do what's in the best interest of the students, and the majority of people that were opposed to
removing any books for the students. So we hear you. I think at the end of the day, we have to listen to what the community says. We have to do what's in alignment with our policies. We have to do what's in alignment with what the voices of parents and parental autonomy is requiring. And so nobody wants to steer away or say that we can't have books in the library that deal with difficult subjects and even very tough subjects, because that's the society that we live in. So I think there's a level of, there's a standard that we need to uphold when it comes to what we offer and how it aligns with our educational standards of excellence.
Very good. And I would echo everything that the board said. And I, again, just really appreciate our community very much. And we do want to hear your voice. And so we're very thankful for the opportunity tonight. So with that, board, it must be me that keeps singing. Oh. Well, it probably is. Okay. So with that, we're going to go ahead and we're going to start a vote. We're going to do a roll call vote. We'll call each book and then Mike will call the vote. So the first book we'll do is, we'll need a motion to take a roll call vote. Okay, motion. Second. So we're making a motion to vote on whether we're going to remove, restrict, or put back on the shelf, right? Retain, remove, restrict, retain. Okay.
The
Yes, sir.
definition of restrict, so everybody knows.
Sure. The definition of restrict is that it will stay in the library. It will be restricted with parent authority to allow their child to check it out. So it will not be placed back on the shelf. It's placed back on the shelf. That's retaining. Retaining. Removing is removing it from our library. Okay. Which one do you have first? Okay.
This one is homegoing.
Okay. Homegoing, restrict.
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 Remove. Restrict.
Six retaining restrictions and one.
Correct. So we'll take a motion for the next one, which is Fun Home. A motion to vote on it. So moved. Got first by Zoronsky, second by Mr. Dunn. Home, which one? Fun Home?
Fun Home.
Remove.
Done.
Remove.
Remove. Roberts. Remove. Hidden.
Remove. Remove.
So remove. The last book we'll take a motion is All Boys Aren't Blue.
So move.
First by Mr. Dunn. Second by Ms. Bittinger. Still learning last name. Okay. Remove.
Restrict. Done.
Remove.
Massengill. Remove. Roberts. Remove.
Remove.
Restrict. Okay. So we need to receive the votes. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we're going to continue on with our agenda. Updates to the board. It's the president's report. Just a second, which is my report. There's my notes. So the last day of school is May 20th and graduation is this Sunday at 5:30. That's one of our favorite things, to see our students graduate. I will say I attended the spring concerts this week and they were fantastic. So thank you. Send my thanks to all of our teachers that were doing that. I know Heather's going to cover this, but we did send a resolution to the governor, our whole board did, about teacher pay and really looking at moving that to increase, moving our legislature and our governor to increase teacher pay. And with that, I will turn it over to Ms. Zaromsky for the MSBA delegate report.
All right, thank you, Linda. Okay, so as she mentioned, teacher salaries. We were first encouraged that the Senate put the money back in to raise teacher pay to $38,000 minimum. And then we were once again discouraged when we realized that it was a one-time grant, not applicable to districts if your teachers already make $38,000. I don't know. Okay, so only really available to those districts that do not currently pay teachers at that rate, and they might be more likely to apply, except there is a 70-30 match requirement, and many districts are not going to have that in their budget. It is one-year money only, so there's no guarantee that that will continue anyways, and so it was definitely a short-term Band-Aid that 89% of teachers across the state will not have access to. So we obviously have a lot of work to do in that space, but we are super proud of our local teachers here who have started a grassroots statewide advocacy effort led by our Nixa teachers called Missouri Public Education Priority 1. And they are on fire and we are proud of them and we stand with them and will continue to fight for better teacher pay coming down from the state level. It needs to change. We've not seen an increase in 17 years in Missouri. And we are last in the nation for starting teacher pay. It just starts at $25,000, y'all. That's insane. Also in June, on June 10th through the 12th, several of us will be attending the Missouri School Board Association Igniting Great Idea Summit in St. Charles. I'm looking forward to that. And at that, the Nixa Public School Board will receive for the 16th year in a row, the MSBA Governance Award. Woohoo! And I think that completes my report, but get involved, contact your legislators, Eric Burleson, Jared Taylor, Mike Moon, contact the governor's office. They only have, I think they only have a couple days left of session anyway, but next session, we really need to get on it.
Excellent report, Ms. Zaromsky. I want to remind everybody that our meeting in June is June 28th. It is on a Tuesday night, so that's a little bit different. That is also our board retreat for the day. And with that, I'm looking for a motion to. Motion by Mr. Roberts. Ms. Bridget. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. The meeting is adjourned.